Balancing Act is a budget simulation that can be used by colleges and universities to share information with the university community, whether it's faculty, students, or staff, and to provide them with information on spending and revenue, and to gather input, their informed input, on priorities and trade-offs. Let me give you a quick demo. So on the very top is what we call the balance bar. This is dynamic and changes based on choices made below. On the left is a donut chart that depicts spending, which corresponds to categories on the right. And beneath the donut chart is revenue, and that is also depicted in a graph. Let's go first to the spending side and look at one of the biggest categories, academic affairs. And when we open it, we see a variety of ways of interacting with material. This is meant to demonstrate some of the ways that you can configure this. So the top one is general operating at $4 million. And we say we don't know what that is, so let's click on the info icon and learn about it. It says the largest spending item is faculty salaries, and said I'd still like to learn a little bit more. If you open it up, it opens a visualization that was created by Questica's OpenBook, and it shows by faculty type. It shows how much money is devoted to them, and if you hover over it, you get a little bit more information. If you wanted to go deeper or pull out and see a little bit larger view, you could go ahead and go to Questica's OpenBook and get even more information. So we say, okay, I understand what that is. I think that we should increase this just a little bit. So with each click of the plus sign, by default, it takes 1% of this amount and does the arithmetic, and it adds it up here, which puts us in deficit because we haven't offset that spending increase with anything else. All right, the next type of question is what we call a scenario question, which allows people to learn about and provide input on trade-offs. So we've got the Teaching Excellence program here. And the question is how many faculty should be funded to participate in the Teaching Excellence program each year. We've got a default at 20, which is the current cohort. We can go up to 30, and if we click on that, we see that it adds $65,000 of spending for an extra 10 teachers, faculty that can go through this program. Or we could reduce it to 10, and we find out that that reduces things by $25,000. And if we wonder why that is, there's an info icon that we can click on, and we find out that most of the costs of the program are fixed, and so reducing below a certain amount doesn't really have a proportionate impact on savings. So let's go ahead and go back to the current cohort at 20. This next type of question looks very similar, simple to use as the first one we looked at, but it's got an added feature. So one of the things that Balancing Act allows you to do is to put a variety of constraints on it. And so let's say that somebody wants to reduce academic computing, that they would prefer to see funds spent on books and people and not necessarily on computers. Reasonable perspective, but there's some reasons why you wouldn't want to do that. So say that somebody wanted to cut it and cut it and cut it, and at a certain point they've reached a minimum that you can set, and it says the university's long-range technology plan calls for spending at least $360,000 on this. There's a link to that plan that they could click on right here, and it just does not allow them to reduce it below a certain level. This next one is what we call a dedicated funds question. We've got a couple of varieties of this. This one simply shows a connection between a spending item and a revenue item, and so if you try to change this one, it tells you that it's determined by the associated revenue source, and you can click right here and see that, go to the revenue side and see what that would look like and learn a little bit more about that one. So it's called the Johnson family, and it's an annual donation, and it says what's selected is spend money per the Johnson family wishes. And if you want to learn a little bit more about that, you can click on this, and you can see that the Johnson family provides $50,000 in honor of their mother, Janice, who was a biology graduate. And you ask for more details, and you see a nice family portrait of the Johnson family, and we presume that this is Janice, for whom this is in her honor. And we can see that the spending impact is that there's $50,000 that can be used towards the operations of the biology lab. And we click on that, and we can see a nice picture of students learning in the lab. And then we can say, let's save that and view the spending side, and we just go back to this, and so you can just see that these two items are linked and that this money can't be used for anything other than that. Okay, let's take a look now at a different topic. We'll go to administration, and we've got campus safety. And it's another one of those scenario questions where it says, should the university decrease spending on its own campus safety program by relying more on city police services? And you say, once again, I need to learn a little bit more about what this is. And so you get a brief description. If you click on this, you get a live updating visualization, once again from OpenBook, that tells you what type of crime is being experienced, what type of incidents are being found. And so you can select your year here, and then you can scroll down and take a look. So in 2017, there were 436 incidents. And if you go down, you can get a sense of what type of incidents those were, that the vast majority of those were disciplinary actions. There were a few criminal offenses and even fewer arrests. And if you want to export the data and take an even closer look at it, you just click right here. So you say, okay, I get that. That makes sense. And you might just say, yes, I'd be willing to do that because we do have a deficit that we need to fix. And that frees up $75,000 that can be used elsewhere, can be put in reserves or whatever. All right, let's take a quick look on the revenue side now. So we'll open up tuition and fees. So you've got student fees that just uses that standard plus minus form of interaction. But then you've got tuition where it asks a really critical question. And presuming this is a public university, it says what should be the proportion of tuition to state aid? And so as a default, you've got a 50-50 split. You could say, I think really tuition ought to be paying a bit more, that maybe let's go with 55% tuition. Click on it, and you see that there's an impact of increasing revenue by $150,000, although families and students are paying a bit more. Or you could say, let's go to 45% 55, with state aid being the larger, and you see that there is a loss in tuition dollars. Presumably that would be made up by state aid, or at least hopefully. All right, so I'm going to go back to the current 50-50 split. And then let's look, our last item will be to look at another type of dedicated fund question. And this is actually formed as a question as opposed to just showing a tie between a revenue and a spending item. So it says, should a new fee of $30 per semester be added for ongoing improvements to student recreation facilities and the addition of new programming? And you say, well, I need to learn a little bit more about that, but let's see what a yes would give me. So you click yes, and you see that the spending impact would be $150,000 that could go towards the Student Recreation Center. And you click on it, and you see a picture of some students exercising. But you say, well, what's the alternative? And you say no, and then you get a couch potato with some Doritos, which is, I guess, an alternative way of being a student that unfortunately some choose. We'll go ahead and click yes on this and go for the spending on exercise facilities and programming, and then we'll save it. And then it just shows you, it takes you over here and shows you that you just added that money, but it doesn't actually impact the overall balance of the simulation because this new spending is being offset by the revenue increase. So there's a lot more you can do with Balancing Act, and it's a highly configurable simulation. It's easy to set up. You can import from a CSV. You can make changes, add constraints. It's similar to setting up SurveyMonkey. We'd be glad to give you a demo if you'd like to learn more about it. You can contact us through our website at abalancingact.com, and we look forward to hearing from you.